Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donahue and Sonia Mansfield talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donahue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. It is Friday. We are recording the show. We had a little bit of creepiness this week. There was a little bit of COVID.
Little COVID scare.
But we're okay now. We're fine.
Yes.
We're seeing our way through it. Thank you so much for joining the show. If this is your first time listening, we talk about creeps from the past to the present. We pick a creep, and then the other one is challenged to come up with a non-creep. So keep that in mind. You will not leave completely in despair. This is a kind of a sad story. But yes. Sonia, I believe in you, Sonia. You're going to get us to the other side.
That might have been your first mistake.
You can find us on Facebook. We have a basic Facebook page. We don't really use it. That's a place for people to complain about our language. This is a good time to let you know. We are a podcast. We're talking about, I'm just going to say trigger warnings, murder, coercive control, and sexual assault. Also, we curse a lot, and that seems to bother people even more sometimes.
Fuck yeah.
We do have a private Facebook group. You do have to answer a few questions to join the group. It's a really nice, cool space where we hang out and talk about creeps and non-creeps. Join if you feel like it. Please follow the rules. We do have rules of, what's it called? Rules of what?
Rules of engagement, I believe is what we're calling them.
That's what we're calling it. And you can't stop us.
Mm-mm.
We are on we are on Twitter at CreepPod because somebody had What a Creep on Twitter for 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
We're on Instagram, What a Creep Podcast. Please follow us on all the social media places. We would really appreciate that. We also have an old-timey email if you want to reach out to us, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. If you would like some stickers, please send us an email. We love hearing from you from all over the world. We've been hearing from people that said, will you send it to Ireland? I'm like, abso-fucking-lutely I will, because those are my peeps. But anywhere you are, and I do have a stack going out, so if you've been waiting for a couple of weeks, just know they should be going out to you. Sonia, do you want to tell them about the website?
Yes, you can go to whatacreeppodcast.com. It's everything you ever wanted to know about our show, but we're afraid to ask. It's got links to all of our past episodes, and including all of our sources, because all of our episodes are sourced and we have links to those sources. You can also go to our merch shop and you can get t-shirts and journals and tote bags, face masks. You can get all the things. We've got our logo. We've got Damn It, Max.
I just heard him barking.
Yeah, Max was barking right before we hit record. Damn it, Max. We have all kinds of good stuff. And we also have a link to our Patreon page. Do you want to tell them about that, Margot?
I do, Sonia. We have a bunch of people that just joined our Patreon page. Thank you to Jade, Britt, Sam, Anne, Rihanna, Sarah, and Terry. Thank you all so much for joining our Patreon page. We put up the first 4 seasons. I think it should go to 5 seasons pretty soon.
Maybe it's happening.
We put out 2 bonus episodes a month. Sometimes you have to wait till the last minute on that last day of the month, but we will get it to y'all.
Correct.
And we do have a newsletter, and it is going out the first week. And Sonia says it's going to drop tonight or tomorrow. That's for all the Patreon people. But once we have a couple of very affordable options, go to Patreon. But if money is tight, and trust us, we understand that shit. Just, tell a friend about the show, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you can hit the like button, subscribe, leave a review. I want to thank Panda Girl, Rose, Lily Violet, and Huggy. All of them left us 5-star reviews recently on iTunes.
Thank you.
And
we love that.
We do love that. And Spotify is now allowing you to leave stars. I don't know if they can leave reviews, but you can leave stars, but also good pods if that you go there. Anyway, wherever you get your podcasts, or ask for a sticker, slap it on your laptop, and go to the coffee shop and look really cool.
Yes.
And tell everyone about us. Is that everything?
I think that's that's everything.
Okay. Trigger warnings for this episode once again: murder, coercive control, sexual assault. Sonia.
Yes.
What do you know about the Charles Starkweather murder spree thing?
Other than the very few things you've told me, nothing at all.
Okay, cool. Charles Starkweather was 19 when he took his 14-year-old girlfriend, 14, Caril Ann Fugate, through Nebraska and Wyoming in January of 1958. He went on a murder spree that ultimately took 11 lives, including her baby sister. He was obsessed with James Dean. We talked about a creep a few weeks ago that was obsessed with Elvis. He did the same thing. You know, he changed his appearance to kind of resemble this guy. And he loved the media attention and the infamy that it brought him. Caril Ann is alive, and she maintains to this day that she was an innocent victim of a psychopath. Charles, was executed June 25th, 1959, so he didn't get to revel in it for very long. Caril Ann served 18 years in a Nebraska prison. Their story has been the inspiration for movies like Badlands.
I was just thinking that. Okay.
California with a K. And Natural Born Killers, which is a movie that came out when I was in college, and really annoying white dudes would come up to me and mansplain why I should really enjoy this violent film.
Yeah, I also had a very strange reaction to that movie that made dudes angry with me.
It's a satire. Do you get it, Sonia? They're making fun of it. What?
But also glorifying it. Get it? I'm like, yes.
Today we are talking about the controversy over who was the real killer or killers and who were the real victims. My sources are, of course, Wikipedia for Caril Ann Fugate, Charles Starkweather from Wikipedia, also Biography Channel. There's called a Wyo History, which is Wyoming history. There's the book The 12th Victim, The Innocence of Caril Ann Fugate in the Starkweather Murder Rampage by Linda Batista and John Stevensberry. I guess you know where they're coming from. There's the opposite of that, Serial Killers and Mass Murderers, Profiles for the World's Most Barbaric Criminals by Nigel Cawthorne. Indeed.
All right.
Murder in the Heartland, which is a movie that stars Tim Roth and Fairuza Balk. I don't know if you remember that. It was a pretty big TV movie, 1993.
I feel like I've seen it. It also has our old man crush, correct?
Brian Dennehy is in this movie. That's why I remembered I like this movie so much. Oh, R.I.P., you sexy beast.
Brian Dennehy.
A Crime to Remember, one of my favorite shows. It's on Amazon. Teenage Wasteland. Deadly Women, which is on one of those Discovery Plus channels.
Yeah.
And a show called Most Evil, Spree Killer. That one gave me nightmares.
I love it. Most evil. Not mostly.
No.
Not mostly evil.
The most evil. They have an episode on spree killers. A spree killer is somebody that just starts killing and can't stop until they're taken away.
Yes.
Or taken out, or both. Our killer today is Charles Starkweather. He was born in 1938 in Lincoln, Nebraska. Most of the action takes place in Nebraska. Have you ever been to Nebraska?
Nope.
I had friends who are from there, and they tell me it can get really boring. Like, there's a lot of open space. The heartland of America. People kind of Badlands that leads up to Wyoming. So it's this vast expanse. When we were, colonizing and taking over property from people, we sort of expanded west, and the Midwest is one of those territories. There's just large swaths of land that used to be farmland and used to be really productive and has sort of gone down over the years, or less agricultural. Anywho, we're talking about Charles Starkweather. He grew to be 5'5", so he was on the petite side. Some of them are short that we talk about. When he had red hair and big blue eyes.
Okay.
Very cute. He looks like Matt Damon. A lot of people say that when they see pictures of him. Like, Matt Damon!
Matt Damon.
Matt Damon. When he was little, his family couldn't afford to go to the doctor, and they didn't know that their son had a hard time seeing. And I'm somebody who's blind as a bat, so I have a lot of empathy for that. When he first goes to school, he was very happy as a little kid. And then when he goes to kindergarten, he's teased because he has bow legs. And he walks into things like he has to hold the wall to kind of find his way around. This teasing, he never got over it. And he had a bit of a stammer, too. Like this, I just did.
Oh man, this guy had everything going bad for him. He couldn't see very well. He couldn't walk straight, and a stammer.
And he had
all
bright
the
red
things
hair.
that helped. All the things that help you fit in.
And he's from this little town. Okay, so there's not like there's a lot of places to go to fit in. He got very angry and very self-conscious at a very young age. He drops out of school at 16, goes through a series of jobs. He gets fired because he gets really mad and like punches people out. And he drinks too much.
It's frowned upon. It's frowned upon.
Most bosses won't be okay with that. Even he's a garbage collector, and he was kind of surprised that they expected him to be at the same place every day at the same time. Like, what? Don't we just do this when we feel like it? No. He has a really good friend who's dating Caril Ann Fugate's sister, Barbara. Barbara's like 2 or 3 years older. Caril Ann is 13 when she meets him. He's 18. He's 5. Now, there's two stories that are going to diverge in a second. So so you have to figure out who you're going to believe here. She says they just made out. They just held hands. They, went to second or third base, but they didn't have sex. He would say they had sex all the time. Mm-hmm. They are, they're very intense as relationships can be when you're really young. And he, like I said, he's somebody who's sporadically employed, sometimes has a home, sometimes doesn't have a home, but he's completely obsessed with her. So November 30th into December 1st of 1957, he goes to a gas station and he's running behind on his red. He's been locked out of his apartment. He knows Caril Ann's parents think he's a big loser and he just needs some money. So he decides to go just out of town and rob a gas station. And he puts, a mask around his face, like a scarf around his face. Mm-hmm. But he's got that big red hair. And I
was just going to say, I'm like, how do you do that when you live in a small town?
Everyone knows what he looks like.
Get out of here, Charles. Stop it, Charles.
Unfortunately, the gas station attendant, Robert Colvert, who was 21 years old, just served in the Army, married, had a baby on the way. This was Charlie's first time trying to rob somebody with a gun, and he got really nervous. And Robert, it was his first goddamn night working the night shift.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
And he couldn't open the safe. And he was like, just take everything. I don't care. Just go.
Right.
And Charlie's so mad that he takes him in the car and drives away with him and kills him.
Oh.
And he got a couple of $100 from it.
It's like not worth it.
Of course not. No, we're not.
For like a little bit of money. It's so fucked up.
Yeah. Well, as the legends would say, the all killer no filler. We're not hero worshiping here. Like this is all fucked up. So Charlie, being the genius that he is, the cops don't know who did it because there's no witnesses and there's no like DNA or anything like that at the time. They're not getting hair fibers or shit. This is sort of like, I got a hunch. I bet it's a drifter that nobody knows.
Yeah, and they don't have security cameras and things like that.
Right.
They're not a thing.
Right. Charlie immediately gets a bank account, pays 3 months of rent, and buys jewelry for his girlfriend. Where did this money come from?
Yeah, everyone's like, yeah, it's totally normal.
Nobody questions him. Christmas happens, and the parents, he gave Caril all these, like I said, this jewelry, and they're like, where is he getting money from? What the hell is going on here? And you're 14 years old now. There's people who describe her as, one girl called her a snit, S-N-I-T. She was a real snot. Like she was sassy. She had an attitude. She didn't like to wear dresses. She preferred to wear jeans and a button-down shirt. She was her own person, for fuck's sakes.
Yeah.
And she's an adolescent, for Christ's sakes.
Yes.
They're not known for great moods.
Yeah, I was just going to say, teenagers are always so loving and polite and sweet.
Very welcoming of one another. No judgment at all. Yes. Caril Ann and her mother leaves Mr. Fugate, Caril's father, and remarries. And she marries a man who's like 20 years older than her, and they have a baby named Betty. Excuse me. And Betty Jean is like Caril Ann's like pet. She adores this little baby. So her older sister marries the guy that she was dating, and she had a babysitting gig. And Caril Ann takes over the babysitting gig. She works from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. every day after school. She makes dinner, she cleans the house, and she takes care of 3 kids. And then,
wow.
it's a fuckload of work. They probably paid her like $1 an hour if she's lucky.
Right.
You know, that's just the way it was. But she would give her parents money for this. But she spent most of it on toys and stuff for Betty. She wanted Betty to and she just adored. So I'm like setting that up. Like, she really liked her family. She had fights with her parents. She's 13, 14 years old.
Yes, they all do.
We all do. The mother is starting to, like, they don't trust Charlie. They think there's something wrong with him. They don't like the way he talks to her. They could tell he has a temper. They're wondering how this asshole has $100 to, like, throw around on gifts when he's wearing, like, you know, old clothes and old shoes and all this shit. And the mother says to him, I don't want you to see her anymore. And he's like, well, she's going to do what she wants. And then Caril Ann tells him, we got to break up. We got to take a break. We can't do this anymore. She comes home January 21st, and he's in the house. This is her story.
Okay.
He tells her, I am a part of this crime syndicate. There's a gang that's after me, and they've taken your mom and your dad and your sister, and they've taken them away. We have to hang out here until they bring them back. But there's something that they're going to need, but they took them away, and you have to hang out with me until they come back. And she's like, well, how's that going to work? And he says, well, just tell people you have the flu. They stay in this house. And Barbara was super close to her mother. They talked every day on the phone.
Yeah.
Doesn't hear from her for a few days. So Barbara immediately comes to the house and it's like, let me see Mom. Caril Ann's like, no. We all have the flu and you have a baby. Like, we can't do this. But she says that she told her sister, like, with her eyes, like something's messed up.
Yeah.
But her sister didn't get the hint because they left.
Okay.
And then the cops come by after a couple of days. And she puts up a sign that says, we have the flu. Don't come in. Charlie's saying, we're having sex, we're drinking, we're watching TV, this like whole week. And she knows that her parents are dead. She knows this and she's celebrating it with me. And we're lying to the cops, we're lying to the family. Grandma comes around and Grandma's like, no bullshit. She's like, I am getting in that house. And Caril Ann had to beg her, please don't come in. And that's when she says to him, we got to go. Like, this is, I don't, you know, we'll see my parents when we get back, but we got to go on the road. So they take off. She said she still thinks that her parents are alive and the baby's alive. Mm-hmm. They're not. Spoiler.
It's so sad. That is so sad.
It's incredibly sad. They're driving along, and so now it's January 27th, and they run into a guy named August Meyer, who's a Fugate friend, and he's an older guy, and he's the old man in the movie with Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone. You know, the old man next door, Blossom. What's his face? Anyway, he plays it in the movie. He says to Charlie, like, Charlie wants to take his car from him and borrow some money. And the old man's like, God, you're such a loser. I always knew you'd be a loser. And girl, get away from this guy. He's an asshole. And you're like, don't say anything. Just don't say anything. Charlie shoots him in the back, raids his house, gets his guns, gets money, takes his car. And they start driving along. Later in the day, they run into 2 kids. Robert Jensen, who's 17, and his girlfriend, Carol King. Not the Carol King. No. Thank God. She's okay. She's still with us. She's still okay. But this is really tragic. They went to the same high school that he went to, and he recognized them. They're a couple of years younger, but he knew they were. And he immediately, he's very insecure. He always has a problem. And he's like, oh, these 2, they're stuck-up assholes. Like, they would never talk to me when I was in school. They just make fun of me. And he's a football player, and she's a cheerleader, and they're both, And these people see them and they have car trouble, so they just pop over and it's like, hey, do you need a lift? So they get in the car and then he starts harassing them, makes them pull the car over. He kills them both. He puts them in like a in the ground kind of bunker kind of thing, like people go for weather. It's like a cellar thing. Okay, so he has Robert go in and then he shoots him, and then he has Caril Ann holding Carol with a gun, and then he gets Carol and takes her and then rapes her.
Oh my God.
And then kills her.
Jesus.
Yeah, he's a real fucking maniac. And what they didn't release at the time was that, because when they found her body, By this time, they found the bodies of her parents and her sister. They're in an outhouse in the back. The place didn't have indoor plumbing. They're very upset because this is not what people expect to find. It's not what they were thinking. And so they're like, well, we got to find them. And then the old man was killed. They found Robert was on the ground. Caril was laying on top of them. And then she was stabbed in the vagina.
So fucked up.
It's really messed up. Now, also what she's saying, Caril Ann is saying that she never had sex with him. She goes, the only couple of times they tried, he couldn't get it up. So I say, because he says he's going to say later that she's the one who stabbed her. And I'm like, women don't do that. A guy that's impotent would.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, like, if there's a side of the story that you believe more, or do you think that's a combo? Do you think that there's parts of his story that's accurate and inaccurate and parts of her story that are accurate and inaccurate, and somewhere in there is the real story? Short
answer, yes, but
yeah.
Well, so I'll go to this. The next day, they wind up at this really fancy house. And he knows this because he was a garbage man. He knew where all the fancy neighborhoods were. Mm-hmm. And so the guy that runs, that's the wealthy industrialist is how he's listed, Mr. Ward, he's taking off for the day. And his wife and her maid, her deaf maid, mind you, are at the house. He comes in with Caril Ann and he starts ordering them around. They both have guns. He demands that they cook him breakfast. So first he asks for pancakes, and then he's like, I don't want pancakes, I want waffles. And he's just being a dick. And he's going around the house, and he's like separating the women. He attacks the women. He stabs them to death. Husband comes home. He shoots him. And now they're taking off. And now everyone's freaking the hell out because there's been like 6 deaths at this point, more. There's been 9 deaths, including Robert, the one from the gas station. At the very next day on the 29th, they're having car trouble. A nice traveling salesman just driving along gives him a lift. Charlie kills him, and then they immediately have car trouble, and has the guy, he's basically on the passenger seat on the floor dead, and a guy comes along and is like, Charlie can hear footsteps, and it's another person that came along and just walked over. I was like, hey, what's going on? Do you need help? Because these are good people. They don't think bad things are going to happen. This guy is 6'2" and a former lineman. So he's super buff. Just starts, Charlie tries to shoot him, and he takes his gun, and they're like fighting like shit. And it's like, thank God somebody's finally going to overpower him.
Right.
A cop just happens to be driving by and pulls over. It's like, he thinks it's just a fight. Fight. So
he's just there to root him on. Do it. Punch him.
It's just him alone. He pulls over. Caril Ann jumps from the back of the car, runs over and goes, oh my God, this guy's kidnapped me. I don't know what's happened to my family. He's terrifying. He's killed a bunch of people. Please take care of me. And he's like, huh? Like, Charlie then gets in the car and starts driving away. So he has Caril Ann in the back seat, and this cop is driving along, and they're on a high-speed chase. And Caril Ann's in the back like, he's a killer. Don't believe him. He's calling for backup, and then there's a big shootout, and he gets nicked in the ear with a bullet. So he shows up at the courthouse, and now they're in Wyoming, and his crisp white shirt's got blood all over it because he got shot. But he looks like James Dean. He's got the glasses and the ducktail. What do they call it? Ducktail hair and all that crap. He takes blame for everything. They're separated, and the cops find out because people just used to look older back then, and a 14-year-old girl could look like she's 30. I mean, honestly, because it's just the hairdo and the demeanor. She was completely in shock. She thought her parents were still alive, and she told him she thought her parents were still alive. Where are they? Can I talk to them? They keep injecting her with drugs to calm her down because she's flipping the fuck out. And of course she is. She's in trauma.
Yeah.
And she's been through all this shit. Charlie takes the blame and says, I did all the killing. She didn't want me to. She's innocent. For some reason, people just didn't understand. And when she found out, her sister Barbara had to tell her that her parents are dead. She didn't believe it.
Sad.
Yes.
Oh, it's so sad.
It's all terribly sad. So he goes to trial, and then as soon as he gets a lawyer, they're like, plead insane, and then you won't have to go to the death chamber, right? And his parents are like, don't plead insane because we don't want that on our family, that tainting our family name. And I'm like,
yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You got bigger problems than that. I mean, your name is
Yeah.
Starkweather. It's pretty, it's going to be known anyway. It's not.
We'd rather everyone think that you're just a mass murderer.
Exactly.
Than crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
He,
Cool.
as he's being, and he gets interviewed, and he gets fan letters, and he gets all, and
It's
she,
so gross.
she
It's
gets
so
blamed.
gross.
People are like, what's wrong with her? Why did she fight back? She had all these opportunities to leave. Why didn't she leave? Because they go to a diner. I'm like, because she thinks he's going to kill people. Like,
Yeah.
she doesn't. And she's 14.
She's just a kid.
Who is sly enough to deal with that situation at 14? I'm not sure what I would do now.
No.
And I talk about true crime all the time. I mean, I don't think it's fair, personally.
No. Why didn't you behave like a totally logical person in a insanely stressful situation?
For several weeks, by the way. By this person you thought you loved.
And also you're a kid.
And you're a kid. That's my take. So he also killed family dogs. He also he's like a total psycho. He does defend himself. And then in his defense, he says, you know what? She was in on it too. She's the one that stabbed this girl because she thought I had sex with her before, Caril King. He talks about the maid and that she's the one that actually stabbed. She's, saying like she killed the parents and she loved it. We had sex all the time. She just wanted to be free. And that's him giving his defense. They say, you're going to the electric chair, but thank you for your service, whatever. I don't know. He just fed the news cycle.
Thanks for the cool story.
Thanks for the cool story, but you're guilty
Yeah.
as shit. And the jury didn't buy that shit. That's my whole point.
Right.
Sorry. Almost a year later, she's on trial. She's now 16 years old, and she's being tried for murder. She's the youngest woman at that time. The chief witness that they have against her is Charles Starkweather, who's already
total reliable witness.
completely reliable. The guy that's going to be dead any day now, that knows he has nothing to lose. He can say whatever the fuck he wants, and it's not going to be contradicted. So he really doubles down on she's the one that's guilty, and she loved it, and she hated her parents, and why. And then people would write things like, well, they dressed her up that she looked older than she was. Like, people thought maybe she should, they also wanted her, why aren't you the perfect witness? Why aren't you crying? Why aren't you doing this or that when you're on the stand or sitting there all day? What's wrong with you? Why aren't you behaving the way we think you should behave?
Yeah, this your story is starting to remind me of a certain other trial that's happening right now that has the media attention.
Yeah, we're not going to, but yeah.
But we're not talking about that.
No, we're talking about this, but
yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So she is convicted, but she's not sentenced to death. She's given a life sentence, but she serves almost 18 years. By the time she gets out, it's 1976. And to this day, she fights. She says that she's not guilty, that she is a victim of this person. She does get married. She never had kids. She was a nanny for a while. In 2013, she was in a car accident and her husband was killed.
Oh.
Just until this past year, she has been trying to get a pardon from the governor, but they won't give her one. It's just too much of a known case. And to this day, people debate it. So I spent the last couple hours on Reddit, and people, and it's just like today, when it's old is new again. Yeah. Oh, yes. She was guilty and she married a guy and she just wanted it for the fame and she loved it when people... This is somebody who did not live that way. She became a nurse. She became a nanny. She gave very few interviews over the years, reluctantly gave interviews, did not want to be... She said, I was innocent. I was a kid. I lost my whole family. This was devastating to me. And that's the side I take. I think she's too young. I think it's all on him. If she had never met him, none of this would have happened.
Correct.
Period. She wasn't going to do it on her own. She was not a killer. I think but I think she's a product of what was going on back then, men and women. I think people certainly didn't understand about trauma or PTSD or the brain of an adolescent and how it's not fully formed until your 20s. That she was from a very small town in a patriarchal culture. It was her first relationship. She thought she was in love. And this guy just was a total psychopath and controlled her.
And look at the power dynamic here. Yeah. You said he would have been 19. She was 13 when they met. 13?
Yeah.
She's a baby. A baby compared to a 19-year-old. Those are formative years.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to mess you up.
Yeah. But to this day, some people still think, like, well, is she innocent or is she... That's where I stand. I think that something happened. It got way out of control. Yeah. She's just trying to find her way around it. And she knew this guy had a temper. She knew obviously he's crazy. He shoots people. Yeah. You know, he was killing animals around her. Like she knew and he threatened to kill her.
I was just going to say that. I'm sure he threatened to kill her.
Yeah. And he was constantly saying like, well, I hope your parents are going to be okay. You know, just constantly putting her in this state of stress for several days in a row, on top of being alone in him at that house when she didn't know what was going on. I mean, it's just, it doesn't make sense to me how she would be in on it. And she, like I said, she led an exemplary life after that. She never had like a detention, like nothing.
Right.
I think
he's just telling the story he wants everyone to believe.
Right.
Like, yeah, I'm a sexual monster.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm
we were
a rebel.
Just doing it all the time. I get hard whenever I want and have sex, and she was in on it too because he's a fucking psycho liar.
Yeah, and that's our creep this week, Charles Starkweather.
Dude, what a good job!
Thank you.
What a fucking creep.
Just going down all these rabbit holes. Like he just had a lot of
in the TV movie the. In the Heartland, does it take a side? Does it take it as
that's a good question. So everybody has a thing, like a crime to remember is like maybe she was in on it, maybe she wasn't. She's just a kid though, right? And and the most evil one was like, oh, she was totally in on it. She knew.
Right.
This one, the TV movie, it was the first time I think she had something to do with it because it's much more sympathetic to her. Actually present it like he was a terrifying psycho and she was just trying to make it through without getting killed.
Yeah.
And that she was innocent. What do you know about life when you're that age and it's 1957? What do you know?
Right. Seriously. It's not like she was watching a ton of crime dramas at the time. And
no podcasts that she could get obsessed with.
She wasn't listening to My Favorite Murder. Like, they don't know what to do.
You don't know what to do. And she was scared. And she, but it goes, we were talking a few weeks ago, we were doing the Pied Piper of Tucson. Forgot to tell you something. The Aileen, who was the first victim of him, she was in the same grade as Gary Shandling. They went to the same school together.
What?
Yup.
That's crazy.
One of our followers on Twitter sent me the picture, like he collects murder stuff, and he sent me the yearbook picture. I was like, what? That's insane. But that was a girl that people were like, oh, well, she was always kind of trashy, and she was asking for it, and blah, blah, blah. And that's kind of the way they paint her. She's poor. She doesn't know better, and so obviously she's trash. And it's just, it's gross. And I don't know. I just have a hard time believing that she's like this psychotic killer and just managed to find a boyfriend to do the thing she wants to do.
Right. I agree with you. That's where I fall as well.
Yeah.
I'm doing a not a creep, but I don't know how cheerful it's going to make people but here's the deal. So in this country right now, there has been a leaked document from the Supreme Court that says that they are going to overturn Roe versus Wade. And obviously everybody here, a lot of people here are very upset. So I put together a list of organizations that people can donate to, because this is what I do when I feel really helpless. And I assume, like, probably a lot of our listeners are very like-minded. I have donated a lot of money over the years to politicians because they said that they were going to fight for us and stand up for what is right. And I have had it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, because now there's this whole thing about like, well, you need to get out and vote. And they're immediately sending out the emails asking for money. And I was like, I did all those things.
Right.
And you haven't done shit for us. And this is a really, really big deal. Like, and this issue, by the way, is not as divided as you think. Like 80% of Americans don't want Roe versus Wade overturned. There's just a very, very vocal minority.
Right.
And it's really upsetting that this is happening. So I linked to it in the show notes for everybody. But The Cut and Mashable did a very good list of organizations you can donate to at a state level. And this is a big deal because when, I'm going to say if, but it could be when Roe versus Wade is overturned, what it does is it throws it back to the states. And then states get to decide whether or not abortion is legal or not. And a lot of states have already said, they've already started putting laws on the books or laws in process where it's going to be illegal. So your Texas, your Oklahomas, your Floridas, all of these. So California, I live in California, Margot's in New York. Both of these states will ratify things that make it legal.
Right.
That's their very liberal states here. So I'm not so worried about California, and of course this is all going to be like a whole thing. This is just the start, right? Next is gay marriage. Next is interracial marriage. Next is, the governor of Florida has already said up next, like, I don't think public education should be free for all kids. Like this is a big deal, y'all.
Yeah.
And Roe versus Wade was founded on the idea of privacy too. So like if this is overturned, there's all kinds of things about our privacy that could get overturned as well. So, this isn't just a women issue. It's a big, big deal. So, like I said, The Cut and Mashable have a good list of organizations at the state level. And then on a national level, there's the Planned Parenthood Action Plan. There's the National Network of Abortion Funds. There is a really great site that's called Aprarary. That's what it's called, collective. And it's for practical support. So you could donate money, but it also outlines like other ways that you can help, whether you're volunteering, whether you're writing postcards, making phone calls, like other ways that you can help. If you can't do money, don't want to do money, want to do more, there's other things you can do. There's also the NARAL Pro-Choice America site that you can donate to through Act Blue. Once again, it's all in our show notes, and I'm linking to it on our website. So if you want to do that, y'all should do it. It's a big deal. I know that this issue may not be everybody, maybe not all of our listeners are all in on this, but I think I want to say sorry, not sorry. If anyone's
right. This is about, like, we should also say, because some people like to use hangers as the imagery. Yeah. And I was reading someone else's tweet about it, and they really went diving deep with it and said it's old iconography that makes people even more make abortion seem even more scary and more frightening process than it actually is. It's a pill. It's very quick and very easy. There's no reason to think about it being like, there's no back alley. I mean, it's just going to be people getting pills for people, but then are they going to be safe? Are they going to be effective? I mean, so that's another thing to it's that, and it doesn't work with them. They don't care. Like the people that are really against abortion, like the wire hanger thing just doesn't even. Joan Crawford fans, but other than that, nobody else cares about the wire hangers. Like they're just not.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they don't care. And I've also seen some things on Twitter where people are sharing stories about like like really conservative families that they've grown up in, or that have been a part of these like pro-life organizations or whatever, and they'll say like they really don't care about like a poor woman who's going to die from like a botched abortion. They legit don't care.
No.
And you know, they don't care about babies because we don't have free medical care here. We don't have adequate preschool, daycares, maternity leaves, anything. It's just about holding women down, holding women back.
Yeah, and there's also this, I'm sorry. It's about this idea also of like, you know, America, our population is great. The number of young people that get married and have families and have babies or adopt them and create families, you know, like wherever way you create your family, it's been healthy in America. Other parts of the world, like China and other parts of the world, they're in trouble because they have this huge amount of people they have to support. That's why it's always like it boggles my mind. We're like, no, you can't have health care. We can't have that in America. We can't afford it. I'm like, they can afford it in Berlin. They can afford it here. We have a healthy. Our 20-somethings still get married, still have kids, 20 and 30-somethings. So there's no reason to say that we can't afford these things or that there's some shortage of babies or something. There's no shortage.
Yeah.
It's
Well, so the reason that and maybe this would make a good creep. I don't know. Maybe I should think about this, but the reason that abortion even became like this hot button issue in America was the evangelical Christians were like, they got on board with abortion in like the 80s, I think, because they couldn't do racism anymore. Yeah. It was like, we want to be racist, but they couldn't be racist. And so it became abortion. And the idea is that somehow all these white babies were being aborted. Like it's about like, it's almost like a numbers game for some people. It's like, we need all these like white babies to be born. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Because if I was the person that was going to have a baby, I'm not going to raise my baby to be Christian. My baby's going to grow up to be another little Sonia that hates you. So I'm not quite sure I understand the long game here, but maybe I need to do more research on it.
Yeah, I have a lot of anger at people that just the way they've voted in 2016 and
yeah, I know. And I will say these reporters from the Daily Show who are going to pro-life like gatherings, and they always have these like pro-adoption sign, which by the way, people should absolutely adopt. I'm not shitting on adopt. So they're just like, adoption is the loving option, blah, blah, blah. And they always ask, how many children have you adopted? And none. The answer is always none. I have two of my own. Yeah, you could adopt one more. Like, why? None of them adopt ever.
Right.
I'm like, it's not about that, is it?
No, there's no shortage of babies. There's no I mean, there really isn't. It's not like other countries where they're really in trouble because of stuff like that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. It's completely just gross, and I know. And
once again, 80% of this country does not support this, and the justices who oversaw them, one of them is Clarence Thomas. We did an episode on him. Yes, we did. Fuck him.
Yeah.
Brett Kavanaugh, with one of the most punchable faces I've ever seen in my entire life, and a rapist. He gets to vote on it. Amy Coney Barrett, or whatever the fuck her name is. Like, these people were all sworn in, like, by presidents that didn't win the popular vote.
But they all said they weren't even going to touch Roe versus Wade. It all been decided. And so, they'll what's her face from Maine? It's like,
Susan Collins. She's the biggest. And
then they said, well, why don't we codify
seen.
It? She goes, we can't because Catholic hospitals don't want to have to perform them. I'm like, for God's sakes.
And the politicians they've done nothing. They've had all this time to to back it up, to put in other legislation in place. They've done nothing. And they're still they're being, for lack of a better word, pussies. They're still being huge pussies. and they're not doing enough. And I'm like, fuck these people. You're not getting any more of my money. Unless you're Stacey Abrams, you're not getting any of my money.
Right. I'm with you.
I'm not, and even Stacey Abrams is like, stop donating to me. Donate to these. And she's linking to abortion organizations. That's our not a creep, are these organizations that are on the front lines. They're doing the right thing. I know it doesn't match up with yours 100, with your creep, but I felt like it was worth doing. It was worth saying.
But if you're upset about it, it's good to know you have like places you could turn, because normally we do say, well, go for this politician or donate to that campaigan. And I do too.
Yeah.
They're all emailing me. I'm like, fuck y'all. You should have been Chuck Schumer. You should be where's your rage? We make up half the country.
They're sending me text messages, and I'm like, what has your candidate done to like codify Roe versus Wade? Nothing.
Right.
Then unsubscribe. Like, I'm not doing it. So anyway, here's a whole list of places to donate to, and I'm going to go through and donate to some too.
All right. Well, that's our show. A little different, but
the not a creep is us. We are the not a creeps. Stand up, fight, put on your pussy hats, and do whatever.
Do whatever you got to do, y'all.
Exactly.
We're not alone. We're in this together.
Yes, we are in this together, friends.
And if you like the sound of our voices after all of that, and why wouldn't you? We co-host a podcast called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies, and we don't even have to talk about all the political stuff. It's just about movies. We do bring up sexism and shit sometimes, but other than that, what are we talking about next, Sonia?
We didn't even pick a movie yet.
Well,
we should decide that.
Was it going to be Batman?
Oh, we were going to do Batman. Do you want to do Batman?
Yeah, let's do Batman, 89.
All right. We're going to do 1989's Batman, which this is the one I've been pushing for a couple weeks, so I'm in.
Yeah,
let's do it.
We're going to do Batman. We have License to Drive. That's out right now, starring the Coreys. And we sing on that one. Yes.
Everyone's all, they sing on that one. Delete.
If you have ideas for creeps or non-creeps, please reach out to us in all those places we mentioned before. We especially love it when you use the Annie Potts GIF. We got one from the Ghostbusters. Or once again, send an email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter and Instagram. And I think at TikTok, I might just be Sonia Mansfield.
Maybe.
And not The Sonia Show. Check either way.
Yeah.
I think it's the Sonia Show, but I'm trying to post on there a little bit more often. So please enjoy.
Yes, same here. You can find me at Brooklyn Fit Chick for Twitter and Instagram. I have a site, brooklynfitchick.com. It is going to be updated soon.
Yay! It's going to look so good.
It's going to look great. I'm on TikTok at Margot Donahue. Be safe. Be good to each other. Don't be a creep.
Be a creep.
Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.